So, does this sound familiar? Somebody says something, you don't hear them, you say what? They say it again, you still don't understand what they said, you say what? After a few more times of this, instead of asking them to repeat themselves, you finally just shake your head and agree. It's a little frustrating.
Oh, yeah, it is. But here's the thing. It could be a sign of hearing loss. Here's another thing. It also could be an easy fix. Delmarva Life's Katie Zerilli visited Chesapeake hearing centers to see how easy. And as you're about to find out, when it comes to hearing aids, let's just say they're not your grandfather's hearing aids anymore.
And I will tighten these on your head. All right.
Rachel Pamakala is here to help your hearing.
I always like to say the saying, we don't hear with our ears, we hear with our brain. So it's all dependent on the brain. And I grew up with 3 grandparents with significant hearing losses. So I've seen firsthand the differences of, oh, this hearing aid is whistling, why aren't they hearing me? And so my goal is to make sure that I really care for each and every patient and really make sure that I can get the most out of their hearing.
Rachel is a clinical audiologist with Chesapeake Hearing Centers, which, having a more than 40-year legacy, is Maryland's oldest private practice audiology clinic. Here on Delmarva, they've got locations in Salisbury, Ocean Pines, and Easton, ready to test for and help treat any hearing issue.
All right, we're gonna get started. When you hear those beep sounds, push that button.
The test is about as simple as it gets.
Putting on headphones, listening to those lovely beep sounds, beep tones, whatever you want to call them. Doing some speech testing just to test how well your brain responds to words. And then some various other tests, just depending on what we find, to assess the type of hearing loss it is, if you have hearing loss, and what treatment options might be available if indeed you have an treatable hearing loss, which most of them are. We also just assess to make sure that there's nothing going on in the ear that we need to be concerned about, whether it's an ear infection, fluid, just other things that might come up that are rare, but good to always make sure that we assess.
Pull. Nag. And that assessment is the first step in getting big questions answered.
We really want to give you an idea of why you have this hearing loss, where it may have started, if it's treatable, and if it is treatable, what is it treatable with? Is it medication? Is it hearing aids? Is it a cochlear implant? Is it something that we need to send you for further evaluation for? And so we're kind of the first stop in that.
Rachel says there can be many different indicators that something might be wrong.
We always say if you are asking for repetition, that is a big one. If you previously were hearing certain sounds and now you're not hearing them, whether it's your turn signal is a big one. If you think your turn signal is silent, it's typically not. So if you are in your car and you put your turn signal on, you can't hear it, that could be a big indicator.
Sometimes it's having been exposed to significantly loud noise.
It only takes one time, even if you lit off a firework or listen to loud music, that can cause noise exposure and a hearing loss related to noise exposure. So all of those are big indicators to just come and get a baseline hearing test.
COVID times have actually helped make some folks aware of hearing issues, according to Rachel, as they notice it's more difficult to understand people wearing masks. She says even during these different days, folks can trust that an appointment here will be a safe one.
We have patients call from their car when they arrive. If we have a patient in the office that is in the waiting room or in a common space, we make sure that they are fully either in office or back out to their car. We have a HEPA pure air purifier that we consistently run throughout the day. We all wear masks. I don't have mine on now, but we have clear masks like this where you can read our lips. So if you are struggling to hear, you can at least use those lip reading cues. Gloves, sanitizer. We screen every single patient that walks in the door.
Maybe you have a loved one with hearing loss. Rachel says being a support to that person will mean more than you realize. That support looks like calling the person by name, eliminating other noise when you're speaking to him or her, and perhaps not talking at your normal pace.
You may need to raise your voice, but slowing down the rate of speech, that is a huge thing. Because again, we hear with our ears and our brain together combined. So yelling and screaming, the brain sometimes just needs the rate of speech to slow.
It can perhaps be frustrating, but don't forget that that person is struggling too.
I have patients that might beat themselves up. Oh, I should have done this sooner. It doesn't matter. You're here now. The biggest thing is just, again, to try your best, be ready for whatever the hearing aids are going to give you and be appreciative of that. And as long as we kind of have a very good working relationship, you're going to do, again, the best that you can with what you have, and that can improve your life greatly.
And so making a connection with Chesapeake Hearing Centers might just have you or a loved one hearing a bit more happily, and in turn, living more comfortably and contently.
And Jimmy, I think we've both had experience with hearing aids through people we love. My father wears a hearing aid. My grandfather wore one that he wore around his neck. So they have come a long way.
They have come a very long ways. Carol had surgery on her ears, so she couldn't wear hearing aids because of the pressure problems, and she was without for 30 years. And I said, you know what? How about we go back and try and see if it works better now? And there have been so many technological improvements. She does great.
That's wonderful. But she still pretends like she doesn't hear you, right?
Oh, it's not a pretend. She doesn't hear me anyway.